Всем привет, это Джипсю, и сегодня мы начнем прохождение игры Senua Sacrifice Hellblade. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. Это такая очень интересная игрушка. Что удивительно, это инди-игра. Вот смотри. Ага. Тут не просто так про психологию рассказано. Так, что нам нужно сделать? Настроить, да? Хер его знает. Да давайте, пусть будет так. Так, знаете, у меня сейчас очень... О, музыка какая. Давайте послушаем. Такой, как будто это психодел. На самом деле это такая скандинавская музыка в этой игре. Потому что игра у нас связана с германо-скандинавской мифологией. Правда, на самом деле я смотрел прохождение. Ну, я довольно-таки так прилично знаю германо-скандинавскую мифологию. Тут подмешали, короче, бог знает что. Так, что у нас здесь есть? Давайте посмотрим настройки. Так, а где мой пульт? Я могу с пульта играть. Ну, давайте пока поиграю с мышки. Так, ага. Что там у нас? Звук, гамма. А что у нас графика? Нормально у нас графика. Так, чего? Ну, давайте все будет так. Гамма. Звук. Вроде слышно, да? Музыка. Нет, я хочу, чтобы была музыка. Здесь музыка просто охерительная. Звуковой эффект. Ага, как звук мышки. Да, прикольно. Ну, давайте оставим на 69 FPS. Голоса. Не, голоса тут кое-что могут подсказать. Давайте оставим на. Ну, пусть будет 95. Меню. Что меню? Да меню, да хер с ним пусть будет. Субтитры. Вкл-выкл. Конечно, вкл. Потому что игра не имеет русской озвучки. Пусть хотя бы будет так. Сложность боя. Авто. Легко, средне, сложно. Давайте авто включим. Звук. Режим фото. Че? Хуй знает. Ну, давайте включим, я не знаю, что это такое. Так, фильм о Hellblade. Сегодня в первой серии. Я честно сразу скажу, я не знаю, когда будет у нас продолжение других серий. Просто сейчас работы у меня дохерищи. Так, и сегодня мы посмотрим фильм о Hellblade. Вам расскажут, что там реально психологи были, потому что в фильме реально психодел. Это такой, знаете, на самом деле, эта игра, там понамешано все. Там просто все. Там может быть и файтинг в какой-то части, слэшер, психодел. Там все есть, аркада даже в какой-то смысле. Давайте-ка посмотрим фильм о Hellblade. Он, к сожалению, на английском языке. Я только не знаю, там есть ли озвучка. Так, предупреждение. В этом видеоролике есть спойлер. Рекомендую смотреть его после... Это вот наша героиня. Тут все, кстати, снимались реальные персонажи. То есть, я имею в виду, люди снимались. Это очень круто. Давайте посмотрим фильмец. О. Вот это была богиня Хель. Вот это вот. Тьма наступает. Тьма у нее в голове.
Because if you believe that Senua's reality is twisted, you must accept that yours might be too.
музыка классная вообще. Здесь реально скандинавские песни. О девушке по имени Сенуа, кельтской воительнице, которая совершает путешествие по стране викингов. Но отличает нашу героиню Сену то, что она страдает от серьезного психотического расстройства. Исходная идея Hellblade — классическое путешествие героя по фантастическому миру, полное испытание с одним отличием. Фантастический мир — это не другая планета или альтернативная вселенная, а мир, созданный сознанием Сенуа. Для воплощения задумки центральной идеей должно было стать какое-то там расстройство психическое, а тема психических... Нихрена как быстро. Было бы не так-то интересно. Вот они, разработчики. Ну, я вам так расскажу, как это было на самом деле. Раньше Британию населяли бриты. Англичане, они никогда не были изначальными жителями британских островов. Там жили бриты, почему она Британия называется. Потом, так, видите, на бритов напали англы и саксы. Это все жители Дании современные, ну то есть викинги. И саксы. Это не англы и саксы, это все датские и германские племена. На самом деле современные британцы — это англы и саксы. Это современные англичане и немцы. О, то есть современные датчане и немцы. Единственное, где... Вот видите, Аркнейские острова. Это там, где жила вот эта Сенуа. Вот высадились первые викинги. И они просто, викинги, истребили и уничтожили всех жителей. Правда, я слышал такую фигню, что это англичане, как их звать-то? Шотландцы, ирландцы — это все-таки пока еще бриты. Почему они так друг друга и ненавидят? О, видите, казнь жертвоприношения, кровавый орел. Вот так ее мужа убили. Дилион. Она до этого с кукушкой у нее все проблема была, а сейчас у нее вообще полный крышняк настал.
I came to learn that the Celts had a sophisticated and nuanced perspective on the nature of mental disorder. One term they used was Gelt. A Gelt is a man or woman who has been driven mad by a curse, battle trauma, or grief. The Gelt would take to a life in the woods in search of penance, punishment, and purgation. And so Senua became a Gelt, cursed by darkness, looking for redemption in the wilds. Another word the Celts used in reference to mental disorders was
вот этот друд будет нам помогать.
One who utters the words of God. They tell of the mad sinner who flees battle into exile and takes on a beastly nature, growing feathers on his body. The character called Ruth in Hellblade is based on a little-known person called Findan, an 8th century Irish Celt who was captured and enslaved by the Vikings, but eventually escaped to Orkney where he became a monk.
I will tell you my stories of hell, if I may walk with you.
Upon meeting Senua, it would be his stories that fueled the quest deep into their world of gods.
The Northmen say the world will come to an end. The sun will grow black, the earth will sink into the sea, the stars will
У кельтов и у скандинавов были разные боги. И вот она в этой игре будет сражаться именно с скандинавскими богами.
stage was set
Рагнарёк.
for a new
Это,
adventure, a
если вы
journey into
знаете,
an
это
awesome world called Hell. A vision
гибель
quest
всего,
fueled by madness and
всего
myth,
сущего,
a fantasy that was
ну,
created
богов,
by
людей, там
Senua's
всех.
own mind, and one that we would experience through her eyes.
This is your mission.
Вот сама актриса, видите, как снимали классно. Живые эмоции.
To make a game about a warrior with psychotic mental illness as its central theme was fraught with danger. Mental illness, such as psychosis, is still taboo and rarely acknowledged in a century of cinema, never mind the new medium of games. Where it does feature, it often conflates psychosis and psychopathy associated with a lack of empathy. It is unfortunate that these two words sound so similar that they are used interchangeably in media. I must admit that I didn't have to look very far to discover my own ignorance of the subject. So we reached out to Paul Fletcher, psychiatrist and professor of health
В создании игры
neuroscience at the
принимали
University of
участие
Cambridge.
настоящие
Psychosis
профессора.
is a descriptive term, and it refers to having a loss of contact with objective reality. So it's characterized by two main sets of symptoms. One of them is hallucinations, where somebody experiences perceptions when there is no actual objective thing out there to perceive.
Who are you?
And the other is delusions, where somebody comes to very often bizarre, unpleasant, frightening beliefs when there's no good evidence in favour of them.
There's no doubt about it. The source of the darkness is in Helheim. And the goddess Hela holds his soul there.
We reached out to Welcome, a biomedical research charity that spends billions on research and awareness programs aimed at improving health.
Mental health hasn't always been presented in the media in a way that is particularly helpful. It can be challenging to engage people with the subject matter, and there are a lot of preconceived ideas about mental health, and particularly schizophrenia and psychosis. So we hope our support allows the team to continue to collaborate with Paul Fletcher and with those who have experience of psychosis to create a game that provides a fresh perspective on the condition and allows audiences to engage with it in a way that just wouldn't be possible in any other medium.
What started out as a brief consultation convinced me that we were only scratching the surface of an immensely deep and interesting subject that could enrich and change the very nature of the game.
That's cool. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, thanks. It's really interesting for me. I'd love to be involved. It's fascinating.
Our understanding of psychosis is still very much a mystery, and ways of treating it are still primitive compared to physical illness. After all, it is easy to see the pain and suffering caused by physical diseases or physical trauma. It is not so easy to see the mental suffering and trauma of severe mental illness. But what if we could find a way to see it? Games are capable of drawing you in for hours on end, playing the role of a character who is different from you, experiencing their perspective, and actively involving you in a world that functions with a different set of rules. If we were to represent Senua's psychosis, we would have to simulate voice hearing, a common attribute. But how can we simulate something we have no first-hand experience of? Professor Charles Fernyhough, a leading expert in voice hearing from Durham University, offered his help.
Hearing
О,
voices is
кстати,
an
да.
experience that is usually
Звуки
associated with
здесь,
severe
вот я
mental illness.
смотрел,
And crucially, we know
слушал.
that hearing
То
voices
есть,
is a part of
отзывы,
ordinary life.
многих,
Many people
даже
who don't
суперпрофессионалов,
meet the
которые говорят, что
criteria for
здесь
mental illness.
музыка и звуки вообще на 200% просто охрененно
We know
сделаны.
voices vary according to where they appear in space. Voices can appear far away in the distance, they can appear right there in your ear, they can seem to be coming from inside your head.
Based on the information Professor Fernyhough provided, I put together a sound brief and
Вот эти
invited some
девушки,
actors to
они
the studio.
голоса
We
в
recorded
голове
the actors
у
using
нее
a binaural
озвучивали. И
microphone,
парни
which
вот
records
эти.
the 3D spatial position of sound, replicating the way sound is heard by human ears. It gives you an incredible sense that the person you are listening to is right there beside you. Rachel Waddingham from the Voice Collective came to our studio with two young voice hearers to speak to our team. We talked at length about their experiences, and they listened to our tests, giving us feedback on how we could improve on it.
Everyone hates her. She's cursed.
It's very hard to represent what this experience is like, partly because it's such a personal, intense, emotional experience. it's testament to how Ninja Theory have been listening to what the researchers are saying, but also crucially listening to the experts by experience. What they've come up with is so compelling. It's by far the best representation I've heard of what these experiences are like.
Other common attributes of psychosis are visions and flashbacks. We met with Recovery College East, who work with and care for people recovering from severe mental disorders. A group of service users gave us their first-hand account of what they experience.
Sometimes when the vision or what we're seeing is too much, it becomes more difficult until eventually we don't see anything.
The people we spoke to, the stories they told, were fascinating, harrowing and mind-boggling. The reality of what people experienced was vivid, far exceeding what I could possibly have imagined. We went away itching to represent some of these visions and flashbacks in the game.
As we'll know, my heart is so, love is so far away. Don't you know how I wanna feel deeper?
Тут уже сцену показывают нам.
Now I see deep in me insanity does unfold. I just wanna feel deeper, deeper.
Что, все что ли?
I just wanna feel
Да, тут в игре еще отличительная черта, чтобы открыть какие-нибудь там врата, нужно собирать эти руны. И нужно искать их среди, не знаю, местности, короче. То есть вам говорится, найди такую руну. И там тень какая-нибудь или еще чего-нибудь. И вы должны это разглядеть. Тоже такой квестик определенный. Тут вот показано, что она бежит от темноты в свет. В темноте она умрет. Вот, видите, руны, да? Вот она нашла, допустим, руну вот такую вот и открыла ворота.
To refine our work, we continue to hold meetings with Recovery College East over the course of a year and a half, showing them what we had achieved so far and
Да,
refining
кстати,
the
игра
in-game
создавалась очень долго, я не знаю
representations based on
сколько
their
лет, но
feedback.
не один
With their
год.
help, flashbacks, visions and changes in perception were woven into the story and gameplay of Senua.
The students that are involved in this project are incredibly excited about being involved. They have described the experience as being important because it values their lived experience and shows that despite what we have been through, all of that experience becomes valid, that actually it's something that we should all be talking about.
The experiences described range from beautiful to frightening beyond comprehension. I heard of a girl who has to live with an angry voice screaming at her, slamming on her doors and walls 24 hours a day. I met someone who would often see hanging corpses in a room, so real that she would sometimes try to rescue them. The panic and fear that comes with such visions is entirely understandable, and it can be a living horror for some.
Worthless, weak, pathetic. Go on, feel sorry for yourself, because there's no one left to do that for you.
I was urged by one fellow that we should not shy away from showing this horror, and so I was perpetually torn in making Hellblade. Had we gone too far with our representations, or not far enough?
Broken and lost, just like your soul.
In some ways, voice hearing and visions were the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. There's another aspect of psychosis that is much harder to explain, but one that I think video games are uniquely able to represent, which are often called delusions.
People begin to see patterns in the world. They begin to link things that most people wouldn't link. Most of the things that we might think would be coincidence or, not worth commenting on. Nevertheless, that might have particular salience or importance for them.
One individual described how everyday words, sounds, colours and objects were steeped in meaning to him,
знаки.
forming a strange and sinister puzzle that he was determined to solve but could not quite get to the bottom of.
It's not just brain dysfunction. It's not like the system shut down. It's actually an incredibly creative process. The person creates a world populated with voices and phantasms and terrors, and they're completely immersed in it. They believe in it.
We often invite people into the studio to play the game. In one of our playtests, they played through much of the game, making associations between runes, secret messages, and the threat of darkness that stalked them. There are many things that happen in the world of Hellblade that make perfect sense within the context of Senua's mind. The dark rot that's killing her slowly from within.
Вот, тут
the secret
рассказывается
runes
про
of the
гниль.
gods that block her path to hell.
Вот у нее
And strange
начинается все
associations
с
that exist
руки,
in the game to
и потом
confuse you.
доходит до
To
мозга. Если
complete
гниль
Senua's
дойдет
quest,
до
you have
мозга,
to internalize
она
and
умрет.
accept
И,
the
кстати,
logical meaning
здесь
behind these things to
восстановления
progress.
уже нету в этой игре.
Afterwards they said that they didn't see much evidence of mental
То есть
illness
умерла,
in the game.
все, играем все сначала.
People with delusions of all sorts would argue the same thing.
То есть она
They are
умерла,
not aware of their experience
допустим, вы
being
играете
abnormal.
за нее, да? Она может умереть несколько раз, пока от руки и там гниль все
Representing
выше и
perception
выше до
changes and
мозга
thinking
доходит и все.
patterns within Hellblade gives us a set of
Порталы тут
symptoms
всякие.
common in psychosis. But people with lived experience were keen to emphasize another point, that it is wrong to define a person by their symptoms. Quite often, the illness comes not from the symptoms, but from the stigma, isolation and mistreatment that comes about from the rest of society.
You say that I'm cursed. What if they're right?
I needed someone to portray Senua, someone who could believably internalize her suffering.
Мелина Йоргенс. Видеоредактор. То есть не профессиональная актриса, а их сотрудница.
Had been a stand-in for Senua over a few months while we perfected our motion capture techniques. Without realizing it, she had already auditioned for the role, and I knew her well enough to know that I didn't have to teach her to act, but to relive her own internal pain. As often is the case, those who have suffered mental anguish are never far from us. My hope is that by creating a compelling and aspirational character in Senua who feels very much real, albeit in a fantasy setting, we can provide a lens into her reality, a different one to yours, and this is where storytelling comes into play. I imagined her life based on common threads in real people's lives. She was always prone to psychosis as a child. Her mother Galena also heard voices and had visions, so perhaps there was a genetic aspect.
Галена — это мать
Or
Сенуа.
perhaps it was cultural as she lived within a world without science, of
У нее тоже
gods
с
and
головой была
superstition,
беда.
as exemplified by her druid father
А
Zimbel.
вот это вообще козел,
Psychosis developed in
папаша
her
ее.
late teens to early 20s and was exacerbated by stigma and isolation at the hands of the clansmen and her father.
Stop. It's spreading.
The trauma of seeing her lover Dillian sacrificed tips her over the edge, making her remodel her reality around a concept that connects everything. The darkness. So the question is what
Вот
Senua
так называемая
experiences
гниль.
real, can only be answered by saying, yes, it is real, it is her reality.
Чем больше она умирает, тем гниль быстрее доходит до мозга.
It's just a matter of time.
Это врата ада.
Towards the end of the project, service users and professionals that had collaborated with us were invited to see the near final game. It was a chance to see if the game had reflected their views or if it had misrepresented them.
For me, being involved in especially developing Senua's character has been really important, and being able to bring in my perspective and what I see and what I hear, and having that built into the game has been a real privilege. It's gritty and it's meaty, and there are some tough subjects in there that are being tackled with honesty.
Да, музычка здесь
I was
охеренная.
blown away by it today, absolutely blown away. It was just fantastic to get the opportunity to use our lived experience in a very creative way. There's nothing tokenistic
по-моему,
about
сумасшедший
the work
какой-то.
we've put in. It feels
Ну,
like
или как там правильно
we've been
называется.
listened to, things have been
Люди
taken on
с
board, and I
психозом.
think there was a lot of realism in the game itself, and it feels very authentic.
Hellblade will give people a good experience of what it's like to hear voices and have those experiences. I'm glad that the guys at Ninja Theory kind of asked us to come along and help the build an experience that's positive when it comes out and get myself have a go.
I think all the way through I was really inspired by how the conversations have translated into the game in a way that I think I didn't imagine was possible. So wonderful, really wonderful.
I really hope that others will follow the lead they've set and use the power of something like a video game to change people's perceptions, to increase understanding, and ultimately to make some of the stigma around voice hearing and other experiences go away.
For me, it was really exciting to see something that I explore scientifically being represented so beautifully in a character who's trying to penetrate the mysteries of the environment in which they've been placed with all of this strange uncertainty and noise and conflicting information that they're getting. I'm very excited by this way of trying to represent mental illness because I think it actually might be offering us insights that we wouldn't get from pure scientific explorations and actually giving us quite an empathic view of what it might be like.
Mental illness has been with us for as long as we have been on this planet, but why? Why hasn't evolution stamped out this weakness from within our gene pool? I often pondered this question until I realized that the question had an inbuilt flaw. It assumes that being and thinking differently is a weakness. The only reason we have computers, spacecraft, medicine, poetry, art, and yes, even video games is because individuals were able to simulate new abstract realities in their minds and share them with the rest of us. We need people to be willing to see differently in order for us to progress and survive as society. And we need to be open to these new ways of seeing. And it is this spirit that motivated me to create Senua's story and share it with you.
Что же, все. Фильм мы посмотрели. Единственное, вот они говорят, что это психоз, там туда-сюда, там какие-то видения. А с кем же она тогда сражается? В каком состоянии она сражается? Ну, то есть спит, и ей снится это все. Или она реально бегает там по лесам, по горам, и с кем она там сражается, я понять не могу. Или он с реальными людьми там сражается, или у нее реально там в голове бог знает чего. Или он там машет мечом. Или это реально во сне происходит, не знаю. Ну что же, давайте-ка пока здесь закончим. Это у нас такая вводная будет. Честно скажу, игра мне очень понравилась. Ну, смотреть. Не знаю, как и поиграть. Попробую. Не знаю, с чего лучше играть. С джойстика или так на клавиатуре. Я так немножко поиграл там, чуть-чуть, прям чуть-чуть. Так, боевочка интересная. Единственное, что мне не понравилось в игре. Во-первых, да, она себя ассоциирует как там германо-скандинавская, кельтская религия. Но там понапутано много. Ой, понапутано. Я уже повторюсь, я хорошо знаю германо-скандинавскую религию. Я ее изучал. Она мне очень нравится. Но там такого бреда иногда понапутано. Это все по ходу я вам расскажу. Что еще? Да, в общем-то, все, наверное. Игрушка, я еще раз скажу, это на самом деле инди-игра, что меня очень поразило. Такая довольно-таки немаленькая игрушка оказалась инди-игрой. Ninja Theory, вот, это вот создатели, я не помню, из какой они страны, но, по-моему, тоже откуда-то оттуда, с северной. Ну что ж, давайте-ка здесь закончим. С вами был GBSU. Это была игра Hellblade, Senua Sacrifice. Мы посмотрели с вами фильм о Hellblade. Всем спасибо и всем пока.